What if the most unsettling thrillers of the 1960s weren't the famous ones everyone keeps talking about, but the quiet films that slipped through the cracks, the kind that don't shout, don't rush, and don't explain themselves? Tubi has been quietly cycling out a group of forgotten thrillers that thrive on tension, doubt, and slow-burn unease. Some of these feel harmless at first, others don't, and one of them hides its real trick until the very end. Number 12. Taste of Fear, 1961. At first glance, Taste of Fear looks polite, almost fragile. A young woman arrives at a large estate, limited in movement and surrounded by family secrets that feel just slightly off. Nothing jumps, nothing rushes, and that's exactly the point. This film understands that fear doesn't need noise, it needs time. Directed by Seth Holt for Hammer Studios, Taste of Fear is one of the studio's most restrained works, choosing atmosphere over spectacle. Long hallways, locked doors, glances that linger too long. The camera often stays still, forcing you to sit inside the tension rather than escape it. What makes the film work is control. Every scene feels measured. Information is revealed slowly, sometimes too slowly, making you question what you think you know. The performances lean into uncertainty. No one ever feels fully safe, but no one feels openly threatening either. That balance is what keeps the pressure tight. Audiences at the time expected something louder, something clearer. Instead, they got a thriller that trusts silence. Over the years, Taste of Fear slipped out of the conversation, even though its influence can be felt in later psychological films that rely on suggestion rather than action. It's the kind of movie that doesn't chase you, it waits, and somehow that makes it harder to forget. Number 11. The Night of the Generals, 1967. The Night of the Generals is not interested in comfort. It opens inside a rigid world of rules, power, and appearances, where questions are inconvenient and answers are dangerous. What begins as a mystery slowly turns into something heavier, something colder. Set during a time of conflict, the film follows an investigation that keeps running into walls. Not because clues are missing, but because authority doesn't want them found. Director Anatol Litvak stages the story with a calm precision that makes everything feel official and distant. That distance is the real tension. The performances are deliberately controlled. Emotions are held back. Conversations feel formal, even when something important is clearly being avoided. This creates an unsettling rhythm where silence speaks louder than dialogue. You can sense that the truth is close, but never allowed to fully surface. What makes this film stand out is its refusal to simplify. It does not rush to judgment or deliver easy resolutions. Instead, it shows how systems protect themselves, how responsibility can disappear when everyone follows procedure. When it was released, audiences struggled to place it. Too serious to be a conventional mystery, too quiet to be a crowd pleaser. Over time, it became overlooked, but revisiting it now, the film feels surprisingly modern. It's not about solving a puzzle. It's about what happens when solving it is no longer the goal. Number 10. Woman of Straw, 1964. Woman of Straw begins like a simple story about wealth and family tension. An older man, a large inheritance. People circling politely, each with their own quiet plans. But beneath that calm surface, the film is laying a trap. Directed by Basil Dearden, this thriller thrives on manipulation rather than speed. Conversations carry double meanings. Small gestures matter. Trust becomes a currency that is spent too quickly. Every character believes they are in control, and that belief is exactly what the story uses against them. Sean Connery delivers one of his most interesting performances here, not as a hero, but as someone whose charm feels deliberate, calculated. Opposite him, Gina Lollobrigida brings a grounded presence that makes the emotional stakes feel real, not theatrical. The film moves carefully, letting tension grow naturally. There are no sudden shifts, no dramatic speeches. Instead, it allows the audience to notice how motives change, how alliances quietly realign. By the time the full picture comes into focus, it feels inevitable. When Woman of Straw was released, it struggled to find its audience. It didn't fit neatly into any trend. Too serious for casual viewing, too subtle for sensation seekers. That's why it faded. But this is a thriller that rewards attention. Miss a glance, miss a pause, and you miss the point entirely. Number 9. Fail Safe, 1964. Fail Safe is built on a single terrifying idea. What if everything works exactly as designed, and that is the problem? This film strips the thriller genre down to its bare essentials. Rooms, conversations, decisions made under pressure. There is no spectacle here, no visual distraction. Director Sidney Lumet turns dialogue into the main source of tension, proving that words can carry enormous weight. The story unfolds in real time, creating a sense of inevitability that tightens with every scene. Characters speak carefully, not because they are calm, but because every word matters. A mistake cannot be taken back. A pause feels dangerous. What makes Fail Safe so effective is its tone. There is no reassurance, no hint that things will simply work out. The film treats its premise with absolute seriousness, refusing to soften the consequences. That commitment unsettled audiences when it first arrived. It was also unlucky. Released near another high-profile film with a similar theme, Fail Safe was overshadowed and slowly slipped into the background. But time has been kind to it. Today, it plays like a warning without preaching. A reminder that systems, once set in motion, don't always care about intention. This is not an easy watch, but it is a necessary one. Number 8. The Deadly Affair, 1967. The Deadly Affair is what happens when a spy story decides to remove the glamour. No stylish gadgets, no heroic speeches, just tired people navigating a gray world where loyalty is temporary and trust is rare. Directed by Sidney Lumet and based on a novel by John le Carré, this film redefines suspense through exhaustion. The main character isn't chasing excitement, he's chasing clarity, and even that feels out of reach. Offices are dull, streets feel empty, conversations are clipped and cautious. Every scene reinforces the idea that this world is built on compromise. The tension doesn't come from action, but from uncertainty. You never quite know who is being honest, and the film never rushes to explain. When it was released, audiences were unsure what to make of it. It didn't feel like the spy stories they expected. There was no fantasy here, just quiet disappointment and emotional cost. That's exactly why it's powerful now. The Deadly Affair feels honest in a way few thrillers dare to be. It understands that the real damage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's slow, administrative, invisible, and once you notice that, the film doesn't let you look away. Number 7. The Collector, 1965. The Collector does something most thrillers are afraid to try. It slows everything down and traps you inside an uncomfortable situation with no easy escape. There are no sweeping locations here, no chase scenes, just a confined space and two people locked into a tense psychological struggle. Directed by William Wyler, this film focuses on control. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that creeps in through routine and politeness. Terrence Stamp plays a man whose calm behavior feels almost courteous, which somehow makes everything more disturbing. Samantha Eggar's performance is layered with intelligence and emotional strength, refusing to turn the character into a simple victim. What makes the film unforgettable is how it forces the audience to sit with the situation. Time stretches, days blur together, conversations repeat with slight changes, revealing deeper cracks beneath the surface. There is no relief in humor or action, just observation. When The Collector was released, many viewers didn't know how to react. It was too intense to be entertaining, and too controlled to be shocking. Over time, it was pushed aside in favor of louder thrillers. But watching it now, the film feels bold. It trusts silence. It trusts discomfort. And it never asks for your approval. It just waits to see how long you can stay with it. Number 6. Séance on a Wet Afternoon, 1964. This is a thriller built entirely on belief. Not belief in the supernatural, but belief in one's own narrative. Séance on a Wet Afternoon follows a woman who is completely convinced of her own importance and a husband who quietly supports that conviction, even as it leads them somewhere dangerous. Directed by Brian Forbes, the film moves with careful patience. Rain-soaked streets, dim interiors, conversations spoken in low voices. Everything feels heavy, as if the world itself is pressing down on the characters. Kim Stanley delivers a remarkable performance here, portraying certainty as both strength and weakness. Her character never doubts herself, and that unwavering confidence becomes the engine of the story. Richard Attenborough plays restraint beautifully, offering small gestures that reveal deep internal conflict. The film never rushes its revelations. Instead, it lets tension build through repetition and quiet escalation. You begin to sense that the plan is flawed long before it unravels, but watching it continue anyway is what creates the unease. Audiences in the 1960s found the film difficult to categorize. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't fast, and it didn't provide easy comfort. As a result, it faded. Today, it feels like a masterclass in psychological storytelling. Calm on the surface, dangerous underneath. Number 5. Bunny Lake is Missing, 1965. Few thrillers mess with your sense of reality as confidently as Bunny Lake is Missing. From its opening moments, the film plants a single question in your mind and refuses to answer it directly. Everything that follows exists to make that question feel more unstable. Directed by Otto Preminger, the film unfolds in a gray version of London, where institutions feel cold and certainty feels fragile. A mother insists her child has vanished. Authorities begin to wonder if the child ever existed at all. The brilliance of the film lies in its restraint. No scene overplays its hand. Performances remain controlled, even as doubt spreads. Every interaction adds another layer of uncertainty. The audience is forced into the role of judge, constantly reassessing what feels true. Preminger uses framing and pacing to great effect, often keeping key information just out of reach. You think you understand what's happening, then a small detail shifts everything. When Bunny Lake is Missing was released, it puzzled viewers. It didn't explain itself clearly. It didn't guide emotions. Over time, it became overshadowed by flashier thrillers. But revisiting it now, the film feels sharp and modern. It understands that confusion can be more unsettling than fear, and once that doubt sets in, it never fully leaves. Number 4. The Third Secret, 1964. The Third Secret is a film that quietly invites you into someone else's unfinished thoughts. The story begins with a death that feels unresolved, not because of unanswered questions, but because of unspoken ones. This psychological thriller explores memory, therapy, and the unreliable nature of perception. The narrative moves through conversations and recollections, each revealing fragments rather than facts. Nothing arrives whole. Everything feels incomplete. Stephen Boyd leads the cast with a performance built on restraint. His character listens more than he speaks, absorbing the contradictions offered by others. As different perspectives emerge, the truth becomes less clear rather than more defined. Director Charles Crichton allows the film to breathe. Scenes are given space to unfold without pressure. The tension comes from what people choose not to say, from pauses that linger longer than expected. At the time of its release, The Third Secret struggled to find attention. It was too inward-looking for mainstream audiences and too subtle for those expecting clear suspense. But that subtlety is its strength. The film treats memory as a shifting landscape, shaped by emotion rather than accuracy. Watching it feels like peeling back layers that were never meant to be exposed. And once you reach the center, the silence there is unsettling. Number 3. Experiment in Terror, 1962. Experiment in Terror proves that a thriller doesn't need speed to be intense. It needs control. This film unfolds with deliberate pacing, focusing on vulnerability and pressure rather than spectacle. Directed by Blake Edwards, the story centers on a woman targeted by a quiet, relentless presence. The threat is never exaggerated, it's precise, patient, and that precision makes it far more unsettling. The film uses everyday locations to great effect. Homes feel exposed, streets feel watched. The sense of safety slowly erodes, replaced by constant unease. Edwards resists dramatic flourishes, letting tension build naturally through repetition and anticipation. Lee Remick delivers a grounded performance that keeps the story emotionally anchored. Her reactions feel real, not theatrical. Glenn Ford's supporting role adds a procedural layer, but the film never becomes procedural in spirit. This is a personal story first. When released, Experiment in Terror shocked audiences with its seriousness. It didn't offer escape or relief, it demanded attention. Over time, it became less discussed, overshadowed by louder genre entries. Watching it now, the film feels precise and unsettling in its simplicity. It understands that fear doesn't need explanation. Sometimes, it just needs time. Number 2. Mirage, 1965. Mirage opens with a man who realizes something is wrong before he understands why. Information is missing, faces don't line up, conversations feel rehearsed, and the harder he tries to piece things together, the more unstable his reality becomes. This is a thriller built on confusion by design. Directed by Edward Dmytryk, Mirage drops the audience directly into the same mental fog as its main character. Gregory Peck plays the role with growing unease, moving from confidence to suspicion without ever tipping into melodrama. What makes Mirage special is how it weaponizes ordinary spaces. Office buildings become mazes, elevators feel like traps, even friendly conversations seem loaded with hidden meaning. The film never explains itself too quickly. It wants you to feel lost. Released during a decade obsessed with control and certainty, Mirage questioned both. It suggested that knowledge could be manipulated, memories reshaped, and truth buried beneath paperwork and polite smiles. That idea felt unsettling at the time. As a result, the film never became a household favorite. It was too paranoid for casual audiences and too quiet to be sensational. Over time, it faded into the background. Watching it now, Mirage feels sharp and strangely current. It understands that the scariest feeling isn't danger. It's not knowing who you are once the answers start slipping away. Number 1. The Ipcress File, 1965. At number 1 is a thriller that rewrote the rules by refusing to play them. The Ipcress File doesn't sell excitement. It sells irritation, confusion, fatigue, and somehow that makes it unforgettable. Michael Caine's lead performance rejects the traditional image of a confident hero. His character is observant, skeptical, and constantly annoyed by authority. Offices feel cramped, conversations feel dismissive, nothing feels glamorous, and that is exactly the point. Director Sidney J. Furie fills the film with strange angles and obstructed views, making the audience feel boxed in. Important information is often hidden at the edges of the frame, forcing you to work for clarity. The result is a thriller that feels mentally demanding in the best way. When it was released, some viewers didn't know what to make of it. Where were the big moments, the clean victories, the easy explanations? The film refused to provide them. Instead, it offered something more honest, a world where systems grind people down, where intelligence work feels dull and exhausting, where success comes at a personal cost. That approach changed the genre, even if it wasn't immediately celebrated. The Ipcress File proved that thrillers could be smart without being flashy, and once you tune into its rhythm, it never lets go. So, if you're scrolling through Tubi and wondering why everything feels familiar, this is your reminder to dig deeper. These 1960s thrillers don't shout for attention. They wait, and once you find them, they stick with you longer than expected. If you enjoyed this list, share which ones surprised you most, hit subscribe for more forgotten gems, and keep an eye on what's quietly disappearing. Because sometimes the best thrillers vanish before anyone notices.